whatever was taught yesterday, I finished block 1 yesterday. So any queries? I think Sachin was present there. Else we can start from block 2
Yeah.
today. Okay. So we finished block 1 yesterday, which uh, which described the basics of business environment and the factors that affect the business environment. How and to what extent can the businesses control those factors, and how can they prepare themselves with the help of environment scanning for such changes or such circumstances that they might face. So today we will be doing one of the other external factors. We had discussed that business environment can be divided into two types: internal factors and external factors, or internal environment and external environment. Internal environment are those factors which exist within the organizational structure, such as the policies of the organization, such as the culture of the organization, such as the strategies, the rules, the vision, the mission, etc., etc. There is some disturbance, I think. Ritu, if you could please put yourself on mute. Yeah, better. So that's what we had discussed yesterday, that business environment can be divided in two parts: internal and external. Internal environment consists of all those factors which exist within the organizational structure, such as rules, strategies, policies, etc. Whereas external environment can further be classified under two parts, which is micro environment and macro environment. Micro environment are the individual forces which are very close to the organization and uh, can directly and immediately have an impact over the working of the organization, and the organization in return can also control such forces to some extent. For example, customers, suppliers, competitors, the intermediaries, etc., etc. And then the macro environment consists of the larger or the aggregate factors which are difficult to be controlled, whose impact are compulsorily to be had on every industry and and firm that exists. Nobody can escape, but they can, of course, to some extent, prepare themselves to adapt to the changes which are taking places in the macro environment. And macro environment consists of forces or factors like socio-cultural factors, like political factors, like legal factors, like technological factors, natural environment, etc., etc. So in the last class, in the previous class, we had done the basics, the classifications. We had also covered up legal environment, not legal, rather political environment. We had covered how socio and cultural environment impacts businesses. And today, while we are starting with block 2 consists of all sort of legal environment. Now, when we talk about legal environment, every chapter or every unit under block 2 will have some or other legal aspects which affect business environment. Now, I am not going to, cover upon every single uh, topic that's given here, but I'll only discuss the important ones, or those that would require you some sort of explanation or some sort of understanding. Others are basic and theoretical that you can pull up on your own. So starting with it, I could not prepare the slides for today's lecture, and I am sorry for that, given the shortage of time. The slides that I prepared for yesterday's session, I will mail it to the RC and they can forward it to you. And I will try in the meanwhile that I also provide you slides with the topics that I'm covering today, so that it can help you during your revision time. So I hope the screen is visible to all. I think I'll just take a minute. So I hope the screen is visible to all. You can all see Unit 5th, the regulatory policies and framework.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. So under Unit 5th, you are going to study the basic reforms, the new economic policies or the new economic reforms of 1991. This covers LPG, which is liberalization, globalization, and privatization. I will just discuss this from here itself. Under this chapter, under this unit, you need to have an understanding of what impact did liberalization, privatization, and globalization brought to the business environment then, and is how impacting it even now. So liberalization, what did he do? What did that do? Liberalization had, abolished the licensing system, the licensing Raj, and had provided greater access to uh, firms or enterprises to enter into the market. And liberalization had also reduced the tariff rates, the basic tariff rates. There were a lot of restrictions on tariff and on even related to quantitative restrictions related to import and export. So that was taken away with liberalization. About privatization, most of the sectors in 1991 were reserved for uh, government sectors to play. It wasn't open for private players, but now with privatization, which came in 1991, there is more access to the private enterprises. It is only three sectors which were fully reserved, and now two of them are only partially reserved for government. So there is more access that private enterprises have. Because of more entry and access to the private enterprises, there is more competition. The customers are getting all kinds of good at cheaper prices. So that is what privatization has brought to the business environment. Also, there is this concept of triple P, public private partnership, which is more popular today. Public private partnership is what? That's an amalgamation of public on undertakings and private undertakings. That means they form partnerships. Private and public enterprises, they form partnerships for development. This model was initiated by then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, wherein the first project I think was this Delhi Agra um expressway, Yamuna Expressway, if you've heard of, which was given to JP Enterprises. So what happens under public-private partnership? There's an agreement between government and a private player. It is more popular or has more significance in developing nations or in underdeveloped nations, where governments have welfare objectives but they always lack funds for infrastructural development. So for infrastructural development, government forms a partnership with the private enterprises, wherein it gives full control to the private enterprises to develop some infrastructure, and in return they can charge some nominal fee over the years. So this is more like a virtual uh, property which gets sold to the private players. So Yamuna Expressway was one of the, I think, starting projects of triple P in India. And then also Delhi Airport T3, it was given to GAR under the same model. This is also called as Singaporean model of economy, which was adopted from Singapore. So so triple P is very popular in Singapore, and that is from where Dr. Manmohan Singh picked it up, and it is now very popular in India. Most of the infrastructural developments which are happening today in India is under triple P. So privatization has also played an important role in today's um structural model of infrastructural development, which is triple P model, public private partnership. Then it is about globalization. Globalization is what? It is free trade or free transport of money, labor, goods, services, products, etc., etc. So globalization has brought in a lot of MNCs, TNCs, multinationals, and transnational corporations. It is owing to the entry of these multinationals and transnationals that uh, the market has become very competitive. Goods are available at very cheaper prices. Raw materials are available to the businesses at very cheaper prices. And also, it is owing to LPG that there is foreign direct investment or foreign institutional investments now in India. So these are the basic regulatory policies, which is uh, the result of new economic reforms or new economic policies. Now, under this, there's an introduction given of the basic business laws. These basic business laws and environmental protection laws are something that we'll be covering even in the chapters to follow. So, in the chapters which are to follow, we'll be studying a bit about Indian Contract Act 1872, about Indian Sale of Goods Act, Negotiable Instruments Act, Arbitration Act, and so on and so forth. So, in the following chapters, we have a chapter on business law, we have a chapter on corporate laws, we have a chapter on labor laws. So, we will be discussing these in the chapters to follow. Yet, since this giving a basic description, I think this is what I would prefer to give. So, the law of contracts or the contracts, the Contract Act 1872 deals with what? The Contract Act, Indian Contract Act 1872 deals with all kinds of contracts that takes place between two parties. It takes care of all the agreements and their enforceability in the code of law. So, Indian Contract Act deals with all the agreements and the contracts that can be formed between two parties for execution. Indian Sale of Goods Act deals with purchases and the sales. Try and understand. Contract Act talks only about the agreements or the contracts between two parties. These agreements or these contracts need not be related to sale. It can be related to usage of goods. It can be related to usage of machinery. It can be related to uh, lease of machinery. So, Contract Act deals with only agreement or contracts. It does not deal with agreement or contract of sale. Sale is dealt under the Indian Sale of Goods Act 1930. So, all the provisions related to sale, what will happen if the seller gets, if the buyer gets cheated, what will happen if the seller and buyer have come under an agreement but they are not able to fulfill it because of any situation, because of theft of the good, because of unavailability of the good, because of inferior quality of the good. So, what provisions would lie under it is what we discuss under Indian Sale of Goods Act. Partnership Act 1932. Partnership Act 1932 deals about all the kinds of partnerships, legal partnerships, accountant partnerships, all the kind of partnerships that take place. So those have to be dealt under the Partnership Act 1932. So the provision of partnerships, how many partners can be there, what would be the ratio of sharing the profits, what would be the salary, what would be the rules in case of any dispute, what would be the way in which the disputes will get settled. All these things are covered under Partnership Act 1932. Then is Negotiable Instruments Act 1940. In case there are any bills, bills of exchange, bills payable, bills receivable signed among the parties, how will those, uh, how the implications of those bills will affect the parties involved? Or if there is any check which gets dishonored, if there's any check which gets stolen, all those things related to bills and checks, anything which any any such instrument which has a promise to pay an amount to the bearer or to the holder of the bill, all those clauses come under Negotiable Instruments Act 1940. The Arbitration Act 1940, this deals with the settlement of disputes. In case there is any dispute between the business and its supplier, between the business and the customers, between the management and the labor, all those will be dealt under Arbitration Act 1940. So all the collective bargaining and negotiation skills gets applied here under Arbitration Act 1940. Then the basic environment protection laws, water prevention and control of pollution, this is all theoretical. So I think about the environmental protection acts you will be able to figure out on your own. Just give it a reading. This is completely theoretical. And about contract company laws, you will study it in the chapters to follow, units to follow. So moving ahead with unit 6th, I will quickly share another slide. In case any of you have any queries related to this, kindly let me know.
Ma'am, I just wanted to confirm if I want to see it, if I want to revise this in any of the books that has been shared, since I have the books in front of me and I was trying to refer to the same, but I couldn't find the reference in the study material here. So, what exactly should I refer to? Like, which book should I be referring to find this chapter?
So you mean to say that you want to refer to an additional book? You want to have a
No, the
reference book
books
apart from the study material. Have you received the study material?
I have. So there's MER 1, 2, and 4 that I have received so far. Third, I
Okay.
haven't. So I was trying to see since it's the first one which was in the mail. I was trying to find the reference to in the first book itself, but the block names are different. The unit names are different. So is it and there's no fifth unit in the book that I have received. So I was a bit confused.
See, just a second. Ritu, see, the study material that I am referring to, I've
Huh.
downloaded it online. Okay.
Okay.
So this is available online. MER 1,
Huh.
2, 3, and 4 are available online. So you can download it from there and
I
refer
have
to the same.
downloaded there also, but this is unit 5 is what we are starting with, is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
understood.
see, no, Ritu, I think you missed yesterday's class. So yesterday we
Yeah,
had finished block 1, which had chapters unit 1 to 4. Okay.
huh,
This is
correct.
the second session wherein I am supposed to be covering as much as I can from block 2, 3, and 4. There are 4 blocks.
Okay,
Okay.
huh, right. So second
There are
block
4
has
blocks.
unit 5.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm starting with block 2 today, which
Okay,
has unit 5 and so on, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there are other blocks to follow. Okay.
understood. Understood. ठीक है, understood.
Okay.
I
You
found
got
the
it?
reference. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
So we're starting with Unit 6, which is Corporate Laws 1, Corporate Laws 1, and Corporate Laws 2. Those are Unit 6 and Unit 7. So corporate laws are very, heavy in number. The data that is being shared here is lot of amendments and acts are referred here. But just to let you know, when we are talking about the amendments here, corporate Indian company law or the Companies Law Act 2000 1956 was amended heavily in 2099, 2000, 2001, 2. But Companies Act has mostly been revised under 2013 Act. So what we follow now is Companies Act 2013. Big and major changes have taken place in companies law, and therefore now it is not even referred as Companies Act 1956, but it is referred as Companies Act 2013. Okay. So major changes have taken place, and that has not been updated in the book. Okay, so I suggest that, while you are giving it a read, because this is completely theoretical and you wouldn't need any help from my end, while you'll be giving it a read, also on your own, get the amendments of Companies Act 2013. I'm repeating again, please have a look to Companies Act 2013 as well, because the amendments which are mentioned here does not contain the major year in which amendments were made to the Companies Act. In fact, 70% of the act has been replaced in 2013. The Companies Act 1956 is no more known as that. It is popularly called as Companies Act 2013 now. Okay, so you can find it online, you can find it on the government website. So I would suggest that amendment, while you're downloading the amendment, refer to the one which is being published by the ministry, refer to the one which is being published by any government. Okay, do not go to any private websites, because they might not contain the whole information. Now, all that I'm going to focus here in this unit is on Sikh Industrial Companies Act. I'll just give you um, an overview of what is SICA 1985, or what is the relevance of this, what is the significance of this, what exactly happens here. Okay, so uh, just a second. So, what happens? Uh, to understand what Sikh Industrial Companies Act is meant for, you need to understand what is the relevance of businesses in today's time, or for an economy, or for a nation. So, it is businesses which generate capital investment, or it is businesses which brings capital formation for a nation. The GDP depends highly on it. The the economic condition of a country, of a nation, depends highly on the businesses. The imports, exports, and therefore the foreign exchange reserves of a country depends highly on it. So, in a way, businesses bring a lot to the economy. Businesses bring a lot to the nation. And therefore, they're very important for the growth and development of a country. Okay. So, when they are this important, no wonder whenever an economy fails, one of the reasons for its failure is the failure of any leading business unit of the nation. For instance, you must be remembering the 2008 recession. The reason for its recession was because Lehman Brothers, uh, one of the investment banks of US, had failed. Okay, so such is the importance that businesses hold in the nation. In accounting, we teach a concept to the students, that businesses are going concern. Going concern means businesses are not meant to wind up. Businesses are not meant to be wound up. They are not meant to be shut down. So this is a concept that we teach. People may come, people may go, but the businesses goes on forever. Okay. So JRD Tata is not anymore. Ratan Tata might also not be there anymore in after few years, but that doesn't mean that Tata is going to shut down. Okay. So the businesses keeps on going. Now it is not in the interest of any country if the business if any of its business, big business unit or even the smaller ones, get shut down. Okay. Therefore, the government came up with a statute under Sikh Industrial Companies Act, that if there is a business unit which is not performing well over the years, they are incurring losses, and they are on the uh, they are on the stage of getting shut down, then we need to revive the structure of that business, so that the sick industry could be brought back into uh, a stage from where it could flourish, from where it could grow, from where it could start afresh. So, the reason or the rationale behind having this act is this, that businesses are important for the growth and development of the nation, and therefore it is important to save sick industries from closing down, sick industries from shutting down, because that's going to impact a lot on the nation negatively. So, this is the reason Sikh Industrial Companies Act was formed, was launched. Now, what happens under Sikh Industrial Companies Act? Any Sikh industry, any ailing industry, any such industry which has been incurring losses for years, they are given a treatment so that they could get revived. That treatment is given by BIFR, Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. BIFR, Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. This board consists of several government and industrial key players who could who have expertise in reviving a sick industry. So the board of the sick industry is taken over, and is taken over by BIFR, a new board, and for 5 years the industry is meant to be run by BIFR, Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. And this board ensures that the shareholders will either get paid off, or the shareholders will have to lose on the worth of their share. The shares are valued from the beginning. The suppliers are settled with some debt, and then the company is started afresh. And it is ensured that under 5 years, the company will either reduce its losses, or it will start making some profits. So this is what Sikh Industrial Companies Act does. This is how it functions. I just explained you its functioning. This is how it functions. What does it do? A new board takes over, and then they start the companies from afresh, revising its shareholders, to revising the debt structure, to revising the creditors of the company, to reviewing the machines, bringing the technology. So there is some special or specialized assistance. There is this specialized assistance which is provided by the BIFR to any sick industry. This is all about Sick Industrial Companies Act. I hope I'm clear about this and you've understood the purpose of Sick Industrial Companies Act. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The other parts I'm not touching because those are completely theoretical. You wouldn't need like literally my assistance in that. You can just give it a read on your own. So this is about Unit 6. Now I will begin with Unit 7th. So this is Unit 7, which is part 2 of corporate laws, because corporate laws are very big. So again, there are 4-5 laws which they are discussing here. First is Industrial IDRA, Industrials Development and Regulation Act. This deals with the registration and licensing of industrial undertakings. What are the rules? What is the registration process? What are the compliances to be followed? Um, then how there would be takeover of management in industrial undertakings. Whenever there has to be any management takeover, what would be the process to be followed? The regulation of price, supply, distribution, etc., etc. This is not very important. Again, very basic. You can give it a read on your own. Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1969. I will just explain you that what is the purpose of this act. The basic theories you can do on your own, the basic laws you can do on your own. So I'll explain you the basic reason for which MRTP Act was brought into force. So Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act was launched in India because India being a welfare state, India being a uh, developing country, it cannot or it could not afford that there could be a huge business, there could be a big business which could take control of the entire market and exercise choices of its own, which would further mean the exploiting the general public. So I hope that you understand what is the meaning of monopolistic. Monopolistic means there are few big firms. There are few big firms. I hope you understand what is monopoly. From monopoly, this has been derived. Monopoly means when there is only one or two large producers or providers of a particular good. When there is one or two large players who provide a particular good, and the demand in return is huge. There are too many customers but very few suppliers. And those suppliers are big undertakings, are large units, are large businesses. So this is a situation that government wanted to avoid. When there would be many customers and only few providers or suppliers or manufacturers, would mean that manufacturer will in return will indirectly have lot of power or control over the supply of a good, and they would be in a powerful position, they would be in an advantageous position to exploit the general public. Okay, there could be hoarding, there could be misleading, there could be um, exploitation. So just to avoid this situation, there was this act which prohibited and restricted the practices of such large units. Okay. So I hope you can understand from the subheadings. There's prevention of concentration of economic power. Economic power in the hands of few large businesses units. Okay. So then there was Competition Act 2002. Competition Act basically uh, pushed that there should be healthy competition in the market and not cutthroat competition, wherein anti competition agreements would be signed between uh, businesses. So Competition Act actually promoted competition, healthy competition in the market, because when there will be healthy competition, there would be competitive prices and competitive goods available to the customer, which will be in the larger welfare of the society as well as the nation. So this was the purpose of the Competition Act 2002. Consumer Protection Act, we had already discussed it yesterday. But yet, just to let you know once more, Consumer Protection Act 1986 was launched to save customers from getting exploited, to provide certain basic rights to the customers. Consumer Protection Act was launched in 1986 because pre 1986 there was a rule of caveat emptor, caveat, caveat emptor, emptor. Caveat emptor was what? This is a popular concept pre 1986, wherein the sellers assumed, or the sellers would easily get away on cheating customers by saying that, it is the duty of the customer to be aware. It is the duty of the customer to save themselves from getting cheated. So that is what is caveat emptor means. Caveat emptor is basically a legal term which, when translated to layman language, would mean let buyer be aware. So caveat emptor means let the buyer be aware. So, it was very easy for the sellers to get away on cheating the customers because of the rule of caveat emptor. And it was a very common phenomenon at that point of time to cheat the customers. There would be adulterated products, there would be faulty products, there would be uh, discriminated prices, and therefore came the Consumer Protection Act 1986. This was launched by the government owing to the lot of exploitation that the customers were facing. So, Consumer Protection Act provided that provided consumers with certain rights, with six rights: right to be aware, right to be informed, right to be educated, right to seek redressal, etc., etc. So, in case they get cheated, it is their right to get their grievance resolved under right to seek redressal. So, consumer codes have been formed under Consumer Protection Act. There are three councils, or three. The Consumer Codes Act at three council, or at three levels: at the district, at the state, and at the national. So, there are some amounts which have been categorized. The councils have been categorized on the basis of certain amounts for which the customer is filing a case. If the amount of the uh, if the amount that has been cheated upon or that has been claimed upon ranges somewhere between uh, 5 to 10 lakhs, then district courts are the places where you have to report. Above that and less than 20 lakhs, then you have to go to state councils, and more than that, you have to go to national councils. You cannot approach the national councils directly, and even if the amount is too low, that doesn't mean that, national councils cannot be approached. I have to restrict myself to the district councils. In case you approach a district council and you're not happy with the decision of the court, you may appeal to a state council. If you're not happy with the decision of the state council as well, you may appeal to the national council, and so on and so forth. So there is this provision under Consumer Acts Protection Act, wherein proper legal assistance is also provided to the customers. Apart from the councils, there is facility of um, getting assistance to the consumers at very nominal fee, just rupees 100. And in case the customer who is being cheated is not capable of paying even that much, then they can approach certain lawyers for free of cost. So there is a list of lawyers which are available on the portal of the Consumer Protection Act, which are available even free of cost in case the capacity of the consumer does not allow them to pay any fees. So that's about. And there are, of course, there are certain NGOs, and there are certain consumer forums which support customers in general who have been cheated, or in dealing with their legal queries. And then there is Essential Commodities Act 1955. Essential Commodities Act was again launched with an objective of ensuring that the customers do not have to pay beyond a particular range for certain essential commodities, be it drug, be it, sorry, so be it certain drugs, or be it certain staple foods. There is a price fixed by the government under Essential Commodities Act, beyond which the producers or the manufacturers or the businesses cannot charge the customers. Okay, so this too had the welfare objective to ensure that the people do not get exploited even for their basic needs, even for the essential commodities. A quantitative or a tariff restriction has been put on certain goods which have been listed here. It contains certain essential drugs and certain staple foods. Okay, so this is Essential Commodities Act 1955. Now, moving to the next unit, I'm just giving you an overview of every chapter because that is what you require right now. Most of the portion is theoretical and you will be able to do it on your own. So I'm giving you an insight into the conceptual clarity over here. Unit 8, which is labor legislation. Now, labor legislation, what relation has labor legislation got to do with business environment? Because to be competitive in the market, businesses would want to sell their products at cheaper prices. And to sell goods at cheaper prices, they need to reduce their cost of production. While reducing cost of production, certain costs are slightly easier to reduce than others. For instance, it is difficult to reduce the cost of resources, natural resources, or the raw materials. But on the same hand, it is easier to reduce the labor costs involved in production. So, to ensure that laborers do not get satisfied, do not get exploited in the quests of the business to compete with each other, labor legislations have been formed. Labor legislations have been formed wherein minimum wages and bonuses are guaranteed to them, wherein there is other sort of insurances and compensations and provident funds which have to be necessarily be provided by the organization, and then to resolve to their grievances there is industrial relations. There are certain acts which have been that has been amended under, that has been launched under industrial relations, for instance trade unions, industrial disputes act, etc, 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 etc. So I'll quickly give you an overview of all these topics. There is Factories Act 1948, which ensures that uh, what would be the environment or the atmosphere of the factory in which the laborers are meant to be working. The atmosphere has to be conducive to the working environment, etc, etc. Wages and Bonuses Act ensures that there should be a minimum guaranteed wage to be provided to the employees or to the laborers. It also ensures that the payment that the payment gets, or the salary or the wages get paid on time. For instance, there is this day of that the payment should be made before 7th of every month. Before the 7th arises of every month, the payment of the previous month's salary has to be released to the government, to the employees or to the laborers. So ensuring that there is timely payment of wages, ensuring that there is uh, a minimum decent wage which gets paid to all the laborers, and ensuring that there are timely hikes or incentives given to them in the form of bonuses. Also, there is Equal Remuneration Act, so that there is no discrimination between two workers who are working at the same rank, at the same position, in the same hierarchy. So there is Equal Remuneration Act. There should be no discrimination on the basis of gender, on the basis of caste, creed, color, etc., etc. So to ensure that, the government has come across with Equal Remuneration Act. Social security legislation, all these acts under the social security legislation ensures that there is a security, there's a safe, uh, there are certain safety features being provided to the employees. For instance, Workmen's Compensation Act ensures that all the compensation related to a person, related to a labor who has served the organization, gets discharged timely. In case of his absence, the nominees or the family get timely discharge of all the compensation which is due for the labor or for the employee. Employee State Insurance Act ensures that uh, there should be acha, Worker Compensations Act also has provisions wherein, in case there is any fatal accident which takes place with the worker at the workplace and outside the workplace, then what compensation and in what form compensation and to what extent and to whom the payments have to be made, the compensation has to be given. Employee State Insurance Act, this deals with the insurance of the health and life of the employees. Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act. So this contains that, depending upon the number of employees that are working in an organization, which provident fund needs to be deposited to whom? For private sectors, for government sectors, and for public undertakings, they have a choice to make wherein they can either deposit it in the state account, or they can do it in the central account, or the private enterprise can have its own provident fund account and deposit the PFs of the employees under it. But there are certain regulatory frameworks wherein the wherein management of such fund will be overseen by the government. So provident fund again deals with how much PF deduction should be made for the employees from their salaries and from the salaries of the and from the office or the employees end, or from the employer's end. I'm sorry, employer and employee have to make an equal contribution to the provident fund. Payment of Gratuity Act. Gratuity basically means the payment that an employee receives at the time of retirement or at the time of superannuation for the loyalty that it has shown to the organization. Okay. So gratuity doesn't get paid to every employee. It is paid only to those employees who have served for more than 5 years in an organization and they do not have any pending cases against them, that they were ever involved in theft, they were ever involved in any vigilance, or so on and so forth. So if there is no cases pending against them in the organization, and if they've served the organization for more than 5 years, then every employee, whether private, whether government, is uh, eligible to get gratuity while they leave the organization at the time of retirement, or even if they choose to do it before retirement. Like in private enterprises, people usually shift. They shift between 6 months, they shift from firm to firm in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Now, if you're shifting your or switching your firm in 6 months or a year or two or three, you will not be eligible to get gratuity. But if you've served the organization for more than 5 years, every employee is eligible to get some gratuity. So this is what is Payment of Gratuity Act. So gratuity is basically the sum which the employer pays to the employee for the loyalty that they've shown over the years. And then there are certain acts under industrial relations, wherein Trade Union Act takes care of all the legislations related to the association or the unions which get formed in the organization, in the factories. Industrial Disputes Act, this looks after the arbitration, it looks after the negotiation, it looks after the bargaining, it looks after how the disputes need will have to be settled between the management and the employees, or between the board members, or so on and so forth. And then finally, workers participation in management. This is a recent concept. Workers participation in management is very popular these days, and it is significant in the sense that it is based on the theory that workers too need some sort of participation or decision making in the organization. The more you involve them, the better would be their performance. Instead of just implementing whatever has been decided by the management, it is always better to make workers the part of the decisions that needs to be implemented. When they are made a part of it, they would be giving out their best in resolving the same. So there are a lot of ways in which workers can be uh, made to participate in the management or in the working of the organization. And such schemes are work committees. This is a popular question. This comes very often. So, I would rather tell you to cover this topic pretty well. Workers' participation in management. What are the schemes of workers' participation? So there are a lot of schemes. For instance, there could be a works committee comprising of workers, which would look after the dispute resolvement, which would look after the advices or recommendations that could be entertained by the management. There is joint management councils. Under joint management councils, labor and management can come together and prepare a seminar on cooperation, on they can offer suggestions to each other how to improve their relationships. They could have better role clarity, etc., etc. Then at certain times workers could also be made representatives of board of directors. They could be taken, some representative on circulation basis could directly be taken to board members. Even in government organizations, this happens, guys. I'm telling you, even in colleges, in institutions, we have a governing body, and under that governing body, there is a representation of the employees, of the senior employees, and of the non teaching employees as well. So, on the basis of circulation, on the basis of rotation, they could be made part of the board member as well. So this is all about Unit 8. With this, we finish Block 2, and now I am going to start with Block 3. In case you have any queries, any suggestions related to the class, I hope you are able to follow up, and I'm not going too quick given the time, because we've, just 2 sessions and 4 hours. This is the maximum time that we can afford to spend on every unit. Okay. So in all possibility, I am trying my best to explain the concepts to you, so that while you give a reading to the same at home before the exams, at least you could remember the rationale, the significance of certain laws, or you know so can I proceed further? Any queries?
Sorry, I have one question.
Yeah,
How
please.
long are these answers expected to be? And is there a structure that we need to write the answers in?
See, Ritu, this is a very vague question. I usually get asked by students that what should be the length of the answers. What happens is that
Yeah.
I do not. You are going to write it on paper with a pen. It's not going to be given online that I could tell you the font size and there would be a line spacing. So I do not know that how can I tell you how many pages are you supposed to be writing, or what should be the length. What I tell the students usually is, put yourself in the place of teacher, put yourself in the place of the evaluator, and then decide what would you expect from the student to write. We do not expect, as an evaluator, because I evaluate IGNO answer sheets, and I'm telling you, as an evaluator personally, I do not expect students to write everything and anything. They should be writing what is material for that question that has been asked, right? The theory of materiality. Give everything that's important, give everything that's relevant, that you think you should be explaining. You're the best judge to figure out how much should you write.
And is there a
right?
structure that we should be writing in, or that's also up to us on in
See,
this?
ideally, again, what I expect is that if there is any difference, even if in the book it is being given in a paragraph structure, you should be writing it in a tabular form. Okay. If there is a question which requires certain data to be put in, you should be giving data. You should make a table and give data. Okay. For instance, if I'm talking about trade, export, import, if you have a question related to that, you should be quoting some datas, right? Some data. Then, if I talk about MER, there are certain subjects like I just finished writing certain units for MER 12, which is social entrepreneurship and innovation. So again, when I talk about certain subjects like that, you need to give examples. Okay. Like yesterday, you were not there, but Sachin was asking me certain questions. He was asking me questions related to socio-cultural environment and so on. So you're expected to give examples. You're expected to give case studies as much as you can. Okay. So for a subject like MER 01, which is business environment, purely theoretical, you cannot give case studies or examples. But there are certain other subjects wherein case studies become very important. Even in your units, you will find case study. Even in your units, you will find data in some tabular form. So I understand that it is not practically possible to remember all those data 96, how much was the export in 96 of a particular product in 98 in 2000, but you can remember like three datas. What was the one in 99, in 2009 maybe, and in 2019, and then you could give, explain the same, as in what fluctuations have the trade been facing. So it completely depends on you. As a student, you are the best judge to figure out what is to be written, how much it is to be written, and in what context. It is obviously understood that you cannot. It shouldn't be expected out of you to give literally all the legal answers with the years, with the sections, with the amendments, because this you're not pursuing law here, you know. But the basic understanding: what was the need for Essential Commodities Act? What was the need for Sick Industrial Act? You know, what is the significance of it? What is the process of it? So the basic things could be given, right? So when you're expected
Excuse me,
out of
ma'am.
to write when you're expected to write something on Consumer Protection Act, then you are
Right.
expected to write for the councils, the three councils that I explained. What was the need of Consumer Protection Act? Maybe you could explain caveat emptor over there, right?
Right.
You could explain the various rights, the six rights that Consumer Protection Act offers to the consumers, the assistance that it offers, who are the parties who are helping the consumers, so on and so forth, right?
Understood.
Yes, Rosemary Thomas, please go ahead. You have a query
Yes,
you
ma'am.
want to say?
So I was going through the techniques of MRTP Act. So do we get a question like what are the techniques in depth within that MRTP Act itself? Do they ask lots of questions from that part, or is it just we need to understand the concept of MRTP?
The concepts, they're not going to ask you purely technical questions.
Okay,
Okay, owing to
right,
the course
right.
that you pursue, they also know that what is to be asked and what not. So usually
Mm-hmm.
they never ask purely technical questions, because this is something that we teach to the students of law, or that we teach to the students of masters in commerce, right? So only the
Yeah,
basic details are expected to and any which way, at IGNU you always have external choices. While can you put yourself on mute?
yeah, sure.
At IGNU you always have external choices in your question paper. So they'll give you 8 questions and they'll expect you to write any 5. So if even if let's say the head examiner who has prepared the question paper floats any technical question, expect only one such technical question, and you'll always be in a position to skip such uh, question. Okay, because there are always external choices. Is
Okay,
that
ma'am. Thank you.
so? I
Ma'am,
will.
how long will this paper be for? The duration of the exam?
Exam. 3
Yeah,
hours. 100 marks paper, 3 hours.
understood.
Okay. And in case you want the previous year question papers, I think I would have it. I had evaluated the
Yeah.
question paper of MAER, the answer sheets of MAER for last semester. I will share it with the RC, and they can forward it to you. So I'll share the PPTs also, and I'll share you the question papers also. I'll give you all that I have, or all that
Yeah,
I can. Okay.
that'd
In
be super
fact, I am
helpful.
just a moment, ma'am. In fact, I feel the previous year question papers are always already uploaded on the website, IGNO website, so they can download it
So
freely from there.
I am not sure about MAER papers, sir.
Okay, okay, okay.
The other subject question papers are already there on the website, but about
MAER.
MAER,
Okay,
I
fine, ma'am. Fine.
because this is a new course, sir, only one examination,
Yeah,
one
one
session has taken
examination.
place, so
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that is the issue with it.
sure, no
So I'll
problem, ma'am.
share it with you. You can also keep it for your record.
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
evaluated some 10 course codes of MAER, so I'll share
Okay,
those papers
sure,
with you.
sure, no problem.
Okay, so proceeding further with unit 3. Mary, do you have any other, Rosemary, do you have any other query because your hand is raised?
No, ma'am, it's clear. Thank you.
So starting with block 3. Block 3 is about financial regulations. So all sort of financial regulations that impact a business or that are to be taken care of by the businesses are discussed here. You can expect several questions from this block, okay, from the financial regulations. These are in the one paper that has been come till date. This was a popular block. So there were several, I think 2 or 3 questions were there from this block. So prepare this block well. This is unit 9, which is financial markets. I will give you a brief overview of the concept. When we are talking about financial markets, this is where basically investors and lenders or borrowers and users transfer funds for facilitating the purchase and share of purchase and sale of shares and investments. Okay, so all the instruments through which a firm or a company or a business can raise money, all those instruments through which a business or a company can raise money are listed, and the investors can, as per their need, expectations, requirement, and availability of funds, can invest in such instruments. So there are several instruments like there's bill of exchange, there's promissory notes, treasury bills, shares, debentures, bonds. So depending upon, all these instruments have different characteristics. Okay, some are for long duration, some are for short duration, some are for medium duration, some have high risk, some are safe investments, some are guaranteed investments. So depending upon the availability of funds with the investors and their risk taking capacity and willingness, they can choose in what way would they be willing to invest. And similarly, the companies can avail the money, avail the funds or the finances for carrying on their uh, business activities. So what are the types of financial market? There is money capital, there's money market, and then there is capital market. So money market basically deals with short-term loans or short-term credits or short-term funds, whereas capital market deals with long-term funds or long-term credits. Money market refers wherein the financial institutions, they deal and provide short-term funds to the businesses units. Okay, short term funds can be provided through bills of exchange, Bills of exchange are issued by the creditors or by the suppliers, by the creditors or by the suppliers. You might think that how come uh, a bills of exchange becomes a part of money market? Because see, companies need funds for what? They need funds for arranging resources, for arranging raw materials, for buying machine, for paying salaries, so that using all of this they could convert or they could make a product which is meant for selling to the customers. Now either you get fund or you get raw material on credit. Both of the things means one and the same. So that is why bills of exchange is also listed here as one of the instruments of money market. Okay. So bills of exchange wherein suppliers or the creditors give you the raw material on credit, and in return you pay them, you give them a bills of payable, you give them a bills of exchange in the name of bills payable. So that is also one of the short term credit instrument in which funds could be available for a short period of time, because that amount is to be paid in a period of 1 month or 2 3 months or 6 months, something like that. Commercial papers. Commercial papers, do not guarantee any fixed return of money. Okay. That is why commercial papers are a little riskier form of investment for the investors. And that is why every business unit cannot use commercial paper for raising funds. Okay. Commercial paper can only be used by such businesses which enjoy good reputation in the market. For instance, people would die to buy the shares of uh, Ambani or maybe Tata. Okay, there would be high competition. So if Tatas or Ambanis or Birlas would need fund for short period of time, people might be interested in purchasing their commercial paper, wherein they are not giving anything on guarantee. They are not giving anything on. These are unsecured. These are unsecured instruments basically, wherein the company doesn't guarantee that if I'm not able to pay you, I am not going to give you any right over my assets. If I'm not able to pay you, your loss. Okay. So these are basically unsecured ways of raising money. So only Tatas or Birlas or Ambanis, whosoever enjoys good reputation in the market, can raise money with this, with the help of commercial paper. Any new firm or any other firm which has been incurring losses, they cannot think of raising funds with commercial paper, because nobody is going to invest into an unsecured instrument. Okay. So that's commercial paper. Treasury bills, popularly known as T bills, again, these are the bills which are issued by government organizations. You can invest government, so they are safe. There's least risk involved, so on and so forth. So then there is call money, wherein banks usually need to settle their weekly or monthly accounts. They need some credit, so they usually borrow from each other. Call money is usually from 1 day to 14 days. So if somebody wants a loan for a period ranging from 1 day to 14 days, they can go for call money. So these are some of the ways in which short-term funds could be raised. Capital market offers investments like shares, debentures, and bonds. These are long-term. Shares means you would become the owner of the organization, owner of the firm. So there is no fixed amount that you will get every year. In case the company is incurring losses, you will not get anything. If they in case the company is incurring some profit, you will get some dividend. In case the company is uh, making huge profits, you will get more dividend. So the dividends, which are the annual payments to the owners or to the shareholders are not a guaranteed inflow, are not a guaranteed inflow. This will be paid when the fund is available and will not be paid when it is not available. Whereas debenture holders are like a loan. Debenture holders are like lenders. Debentures are a form of loan. It's just that there is bank loan or there is loan from financial institutions. Similarly, debentures are loan from general public. So on these funds which have been raised from the general public in the name of debentures, they are to be paid they are to be paid an interest at a fixed rate. Interest at a fixed rate is to be paid every year, and after debentures are raised for a particular period of time, just like we take loan for 20 years, 15 years. Similarly, debentures are also for a particular period of time. After that particular period of time has been finished, debentures needs to be paid the amount or returned the amount in full. Okay, whereas shareholders will get their amount only when the company gets shut down, which is like never. I just taught you the concept of going concern. So under going concern, the businesses are not meant to be shut down, and therefore the shareholders will not be paid anything until the company gets shut down. And also they will be paid anything only when, while shutting the company, they have funds available. If they do not have funds left for paying the shareholders, they will not be paid anything. And similarly, bonds are when government company raises sort of loan, then it is in the form of loans. Then it is in the form of bonds. So bonds are very secured because it has been launched by government organization. So every business enterprise needs fund. When they are working in the form of startups, then they can be in a situation where they are bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is what? When you do not raise funds for operation of your business from the market, rather you arrange it from your own savings or from friends and family. But that's a very small or the initial stage. When you go big, you're ought to be raising funds from outside. You ought to be raising funds or capital from outside, finances from outside. So while you need finances, or whenever you need finances, your need might be either short term or your need of finances might be long term. When you need finances only for a short period of time, that means you need those finances for operational purposes. For operational purposes, or for working capital, or in the form of working capital, you need it for the operation of the business. Then you raise such finances from where? Money market. But when you need funds or finances for a long period of time, you basically need it for capital investment. Long term funds means capital investment. You want to invest that money into buying some machinery, buying building, or for plant and machinery or some equipment. In such cases, the companies or the enterprises need to go to capital market, okay, and raise funds in the form of shares, debentures, bonds, etc., etc. So there's a basic distinction between money market and capital market. I hope you will be able to do it on your own. um, Significance of money market, I think I've already explained you just now. I told you how or when the companies need to go to money market. When the fund is required only for a short duration of time. When the fund required is on a quick notice. When you do not have the time to launch a prospectus and wait for a month to invite applications and then go for pro rata allotment. So the compliance process, or the process of issuing shares, debentures, etc., is very long. Okay, it takes some time. The compliance takes a lot of time. So when you need money just for small period of time, for a short period of time, It is never suggested to go for capital market because the compliance itself takes very long. So Indian money market. So what all instruments are available in the Indian money market? Call money market. I just told you. Usually used by banks and financial institutions. What is the duration? 1 day to 14 days. See, it's given here. 1 day to 14 days. Mostly by used by banks and financial institutions. Then there's treasury bill market. I told you T bill market, which is meant for government organizations. Then there is commercial bill market, repo market. This is irrelevant, you can skip this. Certificate of deposits and commercial paper. I've explained you commercial paper already. I'll explain you certificate of deposits. So what are CODs or certificate of deposits? Certificate of deposits are when usually you need funds for a period of 6 months, ranging amount from 25,000 to anything beyond, to anything within 5 lakhs. Okay, so if you have to issue certificate of deposit, you cannot issue COD to a person, to an investor, for an amount which is lesser than 25,000 and for an amount which is more than 5 lakhs. Under CODs, the mode of payment is what? The period is usually 6 to 9 months, mostly 6. And the mode of payment is what? If you issue me a certificate of deposit worth rupees 25,000, if you give me, or if you make an investment in certificate of deposit of let's say rupees 25,000 in my, on the price in my company, then after a period of 6 months when the COD will mature, I will pay you, let's say 28,000 or 26,000 or 27,000, okay, in lump sum. So there's no interest which is paid separately, and on reimbursement the amount of interest is added to the amount of COD. Okay, and it's just that CODs are for a lesser period of time and for a lesser amount than commercial paper. That's the that's the basic difference. Mutual funds and all, these are basic, you can do it on your own. Mutual funds for short periods are otherwise not recommended at all. So this is given just for theoretical purpose over here, but in reality, in practical, mutual funds are not meant for short period of time, because in mutual funds, the longer is the duration or the longer is the maturity period, uh, the greater would be the benefit, the greater would be the interest that you can earn, the greater would be the dividend or interest that you can earn. I hope you understand what is mutual fund. Do I have to make you understand? Do you know what is mutual fund? Do you understand what's mutual fund? Can you let me know? Sachin, Ritu, Rosemary, mutual funds pata hai aapko, or do you want me to explain it? It will come, I think, while we proceed further as a concept. But tell me, in general, do you understand mutual fund? You know what is mutual fund?
Yes, I do. Um, I have an idea about what mutual funds is. It's basically a trust which collects money from a number of investors in the pool. So, different kinds of equities, bonds, and other instruments are a part of this fund that an investor invests his or her money in.
Yeah, true to some extent. It's not a trust. It's actually it's basically financial institutions or banks which does this on your behalf. In
Right.
case you do not operate on demat on your own, if you do not have your demat account, or if you do not have expertise or specialization in buying or selling of shares or debentures, you have money but no expertise, then in case you can go for portfolio investment. Portfolio investment is called mutual funds. Under portfolio investment, they have a pool of investments which they add to your portfolio So if there is an amount of, let's say, 10,000 that you want to invest, their team of expertise or their expertise people, their expertise team will, break your 10,000 sum of investments into smaller pool of funds, which will be invested into different um in different sort of investments. Okay, let's say 2000 is invested into companies A's share, another 2500 is invested into companies B's debentures, another 2000 rupees is invested into companies D's share, so on and so forth. So there's a pool that they create so as to balance out the risk and return, so as to balance the risk and return. So this is what they do. That's an amalgamation of the shares and debentures, the pool that they create. I think there's such. Okay. So mutual funds are, beneficial mostly in the long run, and therefore this is just for the theoretical concept given here. Otherwise, this has been this is not no more popular in the Indian market. Then certain theoretical deficiencies or the demerits of money market is given, such as this market is unorganized, there are too many players, and there's no control of RBI, or there is no regulation as such that the government or SEBI can exercise on it. There's lack of integration between the organized and the unorganized sectors. Independent parties, they decide on their own as to how they have to operate, and there's no coordination. There's diversity in the rates of interest of various money market instruments that are floated at the same time by the same, or even by the same enterprise. There is no organized bill market. There is shortage of funds whenever companies require, they are not able to avail it. There is seasonal stringency of funds depending upon the seasonal factors that affect the businesses. There are slack seasons and there are surplus seasons, so on and so forth. Then then you can also do, and what were the reforms, what are the reforms or the measures that have been taken place, that have been taken up by the government to take care of the sector. They've deregulated the interest rate, as in now the interest will not be fixed up by the companies as per their whims and fancies. Rather, it has to be in line of the inflation and the recession situation in the economy. There is introduction of new money market instruments. New money market instruments, which consists of T-bills, which consists of certificate of deposits, commercial papers, etc. There is repos and reserve repos. Now, repo rate and reserve repo rates, I hope, is known to you. These are the rates. These are the bank rates or the RBI rates, which are, these are basically the rates at which RBI gives interest to the commercial banks and takes interest from the commercial banks on its savings and loans respectively. So again, the companies also have to revise the interest rate that they are offering and the interest rate at which they are lending, depending upon the, in line with the repo and repo rate existing in the country, in the economy. Then the money market mutual funds, which have also been brought down, so you don't have to, deal more into it. And that is it, I think. The reform measures are still okay. You have to focus on what is money market, what is capital market, what is the distinction between both, what are the various instruments operating in both of these markets, and what are the disadvantages of these markets. So that's what you have to cover here. Capital market. Now, capital market can be divided into two parts: the primary capital market and the secondary capital market. Primary capital market, where there are IPOs. IPOs, initial public offers, when the first time shares of any organization, of any business, of any company is being sold out to the organization, to the general public. And then second capital market where second hand shares are brought and sold. So if I have invested in the shares of, let's say, Ambani's, or Reliance Petrochemicals, or let's say uh, Geo, Reliance Geo, and I want to sell it off, because I'm a shareholder, that means that I'm the owner and I cannot get my money back unless the company winds up. That doesn't mean that my money will be stuck there. In case I'm in need of money, I can sell it off, not to the company but to the other investors. So that's secondary capital market, wherein investors, existing investors and prospective investors, sell and purchase the shares which have already been sold in the market at the IPOs. Then stock exchanges in India. This is theoretical, you can pull it out on your own. The only two existing stock exchanges, which is NSE, National Stock Exchange, and Bombay Stock Exchange, that's to be done here, that's to be covered here. Then what is the process for listing of securities? All those enterprises who are interested in getting their shares listed at the stock exchanges, what is the process for the same, compliance for the same? Just give me a minute. Sorry. So what is the process, or what is the compliance that has to be followed for listing of shares on the stock exchanges? Then Badla system and derivatives, you may do it in case you're able to pick it up, otherwise skip it, because it's a little technical. I will yet try to explain to you. When we talk about derivatives, derivatives are basically of four types. Derivatives are what? Derivatives are financial instruments. I'll quickly go through it. If you're able to pick up, well enough. If not, then you may think of skipping it, because it's a little bit of technical topic. So if I am to explain you derivatives, they haven't given details of derivatives. It's the name has only been mentioned in the topic. Never mind, I'll give you a quick because I've started, so I'll give you a quick introduction about what is derivatives. Derivatives are financial instruments. Those are used by the businesses, mostly by the exporters and importers, so as to you know, like, so as to accomplish their agreements on a particular rate that has been fixed up or finalized. So derivatives are mostly of four kinds, but in India we have only three of them which are operational and popular. The four kinds are forwards, futures, options, and swaps. So swaps are not very popular here, but options are, forwards are, and futures are. So mostly what happens, it is more of interest for the exporters and importers. Under forwards and under futures, I'm not going to explain you one by one, but under forwards and futures, what they do is, what they lock up the rate at which they can exchange the foreign currency with, or the national currency with some particular foreign currency. So you know, if I have an agreement with some trader of China, okay, and I want I've already placed the order for the goods, but the payment will be done on delivery. The delivery will take another 3 months. Now what if the exchange rate falls down at that point of time, I might have to face huge losses. So I'll just go to any bank or any financial institution, and then I'll lock up a rate at the existing rate or any future rate, depending upon what am I signing up, forwards or futures. And thereafter, I can either be at an advantageous position, or I can be at a lesser advantageous position, which is called as hedging. Hedging is basically reducing the loss that you may face in the future. So I'm not sure if you will be given derivatives in the coming chapters, but if it is there, I have explained you the basics of it, and I'll get into detail if it is there in any of the chapters to follow. Otherwise, this is all about derivatives because it's given in the topic but not under explanation. Okay. So regulation of capital. So that's about forwards and futures. Swaps and options are something else, but because it's not giving in details, I'll not go into it. The only reason I explained you about this banking system or the exporter or importer or the relevance of derivatives to them is so that you could understand what is the purpose of these financial instruments. So regulation of capital market, this is important. The regulatory framework, which is the SEBI guidelines, and how stock market operations are controlled. How stock market operations are controlled by the powers that have been provided to the central government, the power that rests with SEBI, the power that rests with the management. All of that is important here. So I will suggest, because this is completely theoretical, so I'm not going to get into that, but I will suggest you to cover this topic fully. Give it a good read. 11.3, which is regulation of capital markets, an overview of the same. What are the regulatory frameworks for issue of capital? The SEBI guidelines, the eligibility norms, which companies will have to follow, what eligibility norms will companies have to follow, and not the pricing of securities, but yes, this, the powers that rests with the central, the power that rests with the central government, the power that rests with SEBI, the rules of stock exchanges. I'm going to put myself on mute for a minute. Please excuse me. So, the power that rests with SEBI, the power that rests with central government, what are the rules of the stock exchanges? This is important. This is completely theory, so I'm not going to, put more stress on this topic because I would want to give an overview of even Unit 4. Okay. So cover this up, give it a good read. In case you face any difficulties at the end of the session, I'll share you my email ID and you may get in touch with me. So this is all about Unit 11. Unit 12, what options does investors have? What laws or bylaws are there for the protection of the investors in case there is any fraud or misleading happening in the organization, businesses, which investors are not acquainted with? If there is any window dressing, what will investors have? What protection will investors have? And the corporate governance. So, what is the need for investors protection? This is an important topic because um, investors are not an expert of understanding the financial statements which are produced by the businesses at the end of the accounting year. They are not an experts of understanding or interpreting the accounting statements, the financial statements. There is a possibility that there are some window dressing, there are some frauds, manipulations in the organization or in the statements that the investors might not be able to figure out. So, under such circumstances, they are at a very vulnerable position, and there is a threat to the money that they've invested in the organization. And for no fault of theirs, they should not be made to bear this loss. Owing to such circumstance, there are certain laws, there are certain bylaws to protect the interest of the investors. So, and then there is concept of corporate governance, the objectives of corporate governance, what are the steps taken for good governance, etc., etc. So, SEBI, the very implementation of SEBI, or the very power those rests with the central government that we had discussed in the unit 11, are in lieu of only protecting the interest of the investors. Owing to their unawareness or their lack of expertise in financial knowledge, financial interpretation, or interpretation of financial statements, there are certain powers that rests with the central government. There are certain powers that rest with the SEBI. There are certain rules and bylaws in which stock exchanges are meant to be operated. There are compulsive audit processes to be taken place in such business enterprises, so that if there is any red flags, those could be taken care of, those could be reported on time, those could be dealt with on time, so as to save the investors from losses, or save them partially from the losses that they could have incurred otherwise. Then the concept of corporate governance. What exactly is corporate governance? Corporate governance basically promotes corporate governance basically promotes transparency in the functioning, in the reporting, and in the accounting, or in the publishments of the financial statements to the investors and to the other interested stakeholders or parties. So this is what is corporate governance. What is corporate governance? Corporate governance promotes transparency. It promotes fair reporting. It promotes uh, fair accounting and accountability. And this is a very new concept to India, not long before 3 decades. So 3 decades bhi nahi hoga, I think. This was launched This was introduced somewhere in UK around 90s. So in India, it was somewhere in early 2000. So corporate governance is just like hardly 2 decades old concept for India. So under corporate governance, um various incentives have been given to the enterprises, and more than incentive, now it is also compulsive for the enterprises to follow a certain structure so that transparency could be obtained in their uh, working working and operations. So there are certain steps which have been taken by the government or by SEBI, so as to ensure that uh, rules or the broad guidelines or framework of corporate governance is being followed by all the organizations, by all the enterprises. So that is all about unit third. We are running short of time, so I'll quickly start with block 4. In case you have any queries, please let me know. Do you have any queries from block 3?
No, I think we can move forward. That's mine.
Okay. So block 4 is about economic environment. It deals with the basic structure of economic environment, the policies in which, not the policies, the regulations for the regulations for regulating economic environment, the contribution or the role that central bank plays in regulating the economy environment whenever there is inflation or recession in the economy. What are the instruments those are available to the central bank or to the RBI to regulate the economy? They can they can sell and purchase securities. They can revise the repo rate and the reverse repo rate. They can increase or reduce the statutory liquidity ratio or the cash reserve ratio, etc., etc. So these are the various instruments in which RBI or the central RBI in India and central banks in general all over India or all over world can regulate the economic environment to some extent. Now, going ahead with the chapters, Unit 13 discusses about the Indian economy structure, the trends in the national income growth, the trends in savings and investment, what is gross domestic product, what is gross domestic savings, what is gross domestic capital formation. So capital formation I had used in the beginning of the session itself. Capital formation is whenever there is new asset creation, whenever there is new asset creation, and that happens whenever there are investments taking place. So with investments taking place, there are assets creation, and that is called as capital formation. So, what is the role of public sector in enhancing the growth and development of the Indian economy? Indian economy basically is a welfare economy. Indian economy is basically a developing economy, and therefore it is a mixed economy. Mixed economy means there is an amalgamation of private and public sector to regulate the economy, to operate the economy. Various features or basic characteristics of the economy is given. Low per capita income is there. But again, if you look at the data is very old. Okay. The data is that of 2003 and 1999 and so on. So you don't have to completely rest on this data, but yet the topic is correct. It still has low per capita income. There is still occupational pattern predominance of agriculture. Yet we are dependent on agriculture to a great extent. Yes, service sector has taken over in the past 1.5 decade, but yet agriculture still, Indian economy still rests to a great extent on the agriculture. There is rapid population growth. That's why the government is intensively involved in controlling it. There is chronic unemployment, which has only been rising for the past 6 7 years. There is deficiency of capital. The capital formation is low. There is huge difference between uh, there's huge difference between uh, the two the dual uh, sets of economy that we are running, dualistic set of economy that's prevalent in the country. The rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming poorer. So there is maldistribution of wealth and assets. There is poor quality of human capital. We lack in this. All the human capital that all the good human capital or the qualitative human capital is already looking forward to shifting out of India. So there is lack of quality human capital in India. Low level of technology, we lie way behind. We lie way behind. India lacks in research and development. India lags in allocating budget for research and development. There is hardly any technological upgradation or innovation taking place from India. So these are the basic features. This is a very theoretical and basic chapter. You will be able to pick up on your own. I would rather see. I was telling you, Ritu. Ritu, I was telling you, whenever there are any data given, and in case you get such questions, you have to even quote figures for that matter of reason. Those figures do not have to be exact, can be close around, but certain figure needs to be quoted in such questions which require analytical or data driven um, answers.
Yeah.
So I will proceed to the next chapter, which is economic planning. So what exactly is economic planning? The 5-year plans that we make. What is the rationale behind such economic planning? What are the long term goals of such plans? What are the development strategies? How 50 years of planning has been reviewed, and then so on and so forth. Again, if you see, the 10th 5-year plan has only been given here. So the latest 5-year plan you can refer to on your own. This is fully theoretical and doesn't need any intervention from my side. Um, various 5-year plans have been discussed here. Economic policies. Now, this is what I was explaining you at the beginning of the block 4, that there are two kinds of economic policies. One is fiscal policy, and the other is monetary policy. This is very important, and I suggest you cover this up pretty well. I will take you quickly to the same. Okay. So, fiscal policy and monetary policy. Monetary policy is the one that I have discussed with you regarding the various instruments that rests with the central bank, in which it can control the economic situation of the country. And fiscal policy is what? Fiscal policies are those policies which rest with the government, wherein it can control its expenses or its revenue, and thereby controlling the economic situation that rests in the country. Okay, so there are certain expenses that government makes: expenses for the infrastructure development, expenses for the healthcare development, expenses for the power sectors, etc., etc., and for the general operations of the government. And there are certain revenues that government receive. Those revenues are in the form of taxes, income taxes, goods and service taxes, and other form of revenues could be borrowings. Government borrows funds from public, government borrows funds from other countries, government borrows funds from World Bank, from IMF. So there are various sources of revenue, and there are various sources of expenses also for the government. So while there are inflation or recession situations existing or prevailing in a country, government can choose to regulate such inflations or recessions, using by controlling its expenses, or by increasing its expenses, or by increasing its revenue, or by controlling its revenues. How can they control the revenues? By giving certain subsidies. So the amount of taxes would reduce down. But that's not what government ever does. They only increase it. They want to increase their revenue. They might decrease their expenses in any cases, but they always wish to increase their revenues. Now, how can this controlling be given? Controlling can be done. I'm just giving you an example. For instance, let's say there is a recession in the economy. There is recession in the economy means what? That people do not have money. There is shortage of funds in circulation in the economy. In such cases, government can spend its expenditure. The amount of funds that government is spending in the economy can be increased. More funds are released in the economy means more funds will be circulated and reaching the hands of the people. Okay, and therefore recession can be controlled. When there is inflation, government can control its expenses. It will withdraw its expenses. It will reduce its expenses. So the money in circulation from the government's end will reduce, and therefore there would be reduced money in the hands of the people also. Okay. Now, similarly, monetary policy. What are monetary policies? Monetary policies are those policies um, which are which are framed by or implemented by the central bank of the country so as to control the economic situation of the nation, be it recession or be it inflation. So there are several instruments that rests with with central bank, using which it controls the economic situation. Such instruments are, I hope it is listed here. No, never mind. Such instruments are what? It can increase the bank rate or decrease the bank rate depending upon what economic situation exists. It can purchase or sell the open securities in the market in case there is inflation. So it wants to control money. So what will it do? It will sell the open securities in the market. While it will sell, people will purchase, the bank will get money, and then it can trap the money so that there is no further circulation of money, so that there is no excess money in the hands of the people. Okay, and vice versa, if there is recession in the economy, it can purchase open securities. So when the bank purchases, it will give money in return, so there will be more money in circulation. So there are several instruments like bank rate, it can increase or decrease, purchasing or selling of securities in the open market, repo rate and reverse repo rate, then increasing or decreasing the statutory liquidity ratio or the cash reserve ratio that rests with the central bank. So not that can be controlled by the central bank. Small scale industries. Now, this is fully theoretical and you can do it on your own. What is the role of small scale industries, small, medium, micro uh, industries in the growth and development of the nation? How do they contribute to the growth and development? What is the rationale for having small scale industries? So that there is balanced regional growth, because big industries are always focused in the metropolitans. They do not spread out to the nooks and corners of the uh, state or the country. So it is small scale industry which provides employment, which provides um, goods and products, which provides balanced regional growth to the nation. So this is the rationale, this is their significance, and the raw material assistance, the loan scheme, the market support programs are few of the programs that are available to them, that are made available to them by the government. So the government helps them because they do not want them to lag behind because of unavailability of resources or unavailability of exposure owing to their locality. Okay. Then there are several under the financial schemes itself. They will also They had also set up SIDBI, Small Industrials Development Bank of India, and then there are state level institutions which are also helping them out, the small scale entrepreneurs. And then this is it. These are very basic details given related to that. I would quickly move to the last unit, which is economic reforms that have been taken place. Now, this doesn't need much intervention because we've already done um, the rationale behind new economic policy of 1991. Why liberalization, privatization, and globalization was needed? What was their impact? How have they, transitioned the Indian economy? So these are the only things which are relevant over here. Assessment and impact of economic reforms could be just given a look. There has been increase in GDP growth because of the new economic policies. Poverty has reduced. There's growth in the employment. Agriculture sector has been neglected to some extent. There is growth in infrastructural and industrial growth, general industrial growth. It has led to inflation. Foreign trade and balance of payment has improved of India, and there's more of foreign investment in the name of foreign direct investments and foreign institutional investments coming up our way, and there is a reduction in regional disparities because of several regional cooperation that exist. For instance, there's SARC, there is BRICS, there is G20, and so on and so forth. There is ASEAN, etc. So that is all from my end. Just for your uh, assistance in future, I'm going to share my email ID. You may drop me your uh, queries related to this chapter in case you come across any during your examinations. I usually respond to my mails in a day within 24 hours. So that is all from my end. And in case you have any queries, please feel free to ask. Any queries, any suggestions? Nothing? See, that is all that I could manage in a 4 hours session, you know. With this speed, only we could cover up everything that has been given. I tried from my end to just touch upon every topic and let you know the rationale behind or the concept behind those topics. For detailed queries, you can always, or for future queries, you can always write up to me. Any other queries? Anything you want to say?
I wanted to ask you one thing. You mentioned that we'll have a 100-mark paper and we'll have 8 questions, out of which 5 is what we'll be selecting. So, is there a division of the questions in a structure or something as such of the question paper for this year, since it's just the second year that the course will be, making the question paper. So, is there a way that it'll be divided into?
See, Ritu, I can just tell you in general, like this is the pattern that IGNOU follows for all its for all its master's courses. Okay, so there is no structure, there is no division of any section. There are just 8 questions floated. So if ideally, usually they try to follow a pattern, which is that there are equal weightage given to every blocks. Okay, so if there are 4 blocks, they would usually give 2 questions from each block. But there are certain cases when a particular block does not has so many topics of relevance that could be given questions from. Okay, so in certain cases, one block could be given a lesser weightage than other. Otherwise, all the blocks are given equal weightage mostly, because I have set certain papers at IGNOU. So with that kind of experience, I can just tell you. Otherwise, there's no set format. It depends from uh, examiner to examiner, the head examiner. Okay.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Any other question? So, sir, Rajesh, sir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I think you have in a very short time covered all the topics which have been assigned. There is just one or two one or two announcements that I need to make. One is regarding the uploading of yesterday's counseling session video that has already been uploaded on Asim Vadagara YouTube channel. Those who missed out or want to revisit the session, yesterday's session, can definitely visit Asim Vadagara YouTube channel and view that session. It has been uploaded yesterday. No, today. In fact, I think it has been uploaded today afternoon. So you can visit that Asim Vadagara YouTube channel and definitely view that session. The second thing is there is a link for assignments. Sorry, a link for marking your attendance has been just circulated in the chat box. Kindly do mark your assignments. Sorry, mark your attendance, because that is also very important from the administrative point of view. So I request all who are participating in this session to kindly mark your attendance. You can just copy and keep that link in your browser, and as soon as the session is over, you can just mark the attendance. So these are the two announcements that I need to make from my end. There's a question whether there's a WhatsApp group. No, unfortunately, there's no WhatsApp group as of now, because of the simple reason that the master data is not with Asim Vadagara. The data is spread all across the country in different regional centers. So only if we have the master data, we can do something of that sort. Even if we have a link to the WhatsApp group, we can circulate it only if we have the master data. Unfortunately, we do not have that. We only have the data related to the 3 students who are from Asim Vadagara, so that's why we are not able to do it. So that's it from my end. Anything else from your end?
No, sir, nothing as such.
Okay, ma'am. I think the session can be brought to a close now. And I thank SNIGDHA madam and the 3 participants, Mr. Sachin, Ms. Ritu, and Ms. Rosemary, for having joined this session. Thank you, all of you. And we will be joining for MER-002 session 1 tomorrow at the same time. So thank you, Almano. And it was nice having all of you for this conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.